Most people think no one's paying attention until something dramatic happens. But the truth is, a lot of people, especially the ones you'd never expect, are watching closely. Not liking your posts, not commenting, not saying a word, but they're watching. The ex-friends, the co-workers, the people who dismissed you, even the ones who tried to fix you. They're tracking your behavior like it's a damn Netflix series. Every time you level up silently, every time you stop reacting, it messes with them. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you stopped letting their energy run your life. They can't believe you finally got quiet. And that silence, that's loud for the people who thought they'd always have access to your reactions. The moment you stop explaining yourself, people get uncomfortable. Not because they don't understand, but because they can't control the narrative anymore. When you used to defend yourself, overtalk, justify every little thing, you gave them an easy role to play. Now they're stuck having to guess. Silence removes their script. It drives the manipulators insane, because their favorite game was dragging your name through rooms you weren't in and expecting you to clean up the mess. But now you're unavailable, and the same silence they call cold is the same silence they used when they were ignoring your boundaries. Funny how it only becomes a problem when it benefits you. You want to know when people start folding, when you stop trying to look good for them, when you walk into a room and don't shrink or over-perform. The ones who built their identity around being above you, they panic. They depended on you needing approval, on you being loud about your changes, loud about your progress, so they could stay 2 steps ahead. But now you're just doing your thing, quiet, unapologetic, not needing to prove anything. That throws people off, because most people rely on being bigger than someone else to feel valid. Take that away from them, and they start slipping. It's wild how people who had the most to say about you end up copying you once you detach. They watched you struggle. They saw your lowest points, and now they're mirroring the same habits they once mocked. It's not admiration. It's theft in plain sight. But it doesn't matter, because real power is knowing what's yours and not flinching when someone tries to wear your skin like it's theirs. Let them pretend. Let them perform. Meanwhile, you're still moving, not seeking permission, not asking who's watching. That level of internal calm. That's what keeps high status eyes locked on you. Because most people fold under pressure, but you just keep walking. People will test your silence more than your words. They'll try to bait you into old patterns, just to feel comfortable again, like sending you passive, aggressive messages or posting shady things that clearly have your name on them. And when you don't bite, that's when they unravel. They need your reaction like oxygen, because without your response, they're stuck looking bitter. You're not winning by ignoring them. You're just refusing to give energy where it never paid back. That kind of restraint makes people furious. They'll say you're cold, distant, fake. Let them. You're not cold. You're just done bleeding for people who never offered a band. Aid. Most people confuse staying silent with being weak. What they don't get is silence is restraint. It's the discipline not to show your whole hand to people who only want to twist your truth. When you go quiet, it's not because you lost the argument. It's because you realized arguing was the trap. Toxic people thrive on chaos. They'll poke, prod, guilt trip, spin the story to anyone who'll listen. But when you stop responding, they're left with nothing but their own noise. And eventually, they start to sound crazy even to themselves. That's when the real shift happens. They start getting exposed without you lifting a finger. It's easy to mistake detachment for loneliness. But pulling back isn't isolation. It's preservation. When you finally stop showing up for people who only call when they need drama, you realize how much of your energy was being drained. They don't miss you. They miss the version of you that made them feel more important. Once that version disappears, they start throwing guilt around. You've changed, they'll say. Yeah, because staying the same would have kept you stuck. Growth makes people uncomfortable when they benefited from your lack of it. Let them sulk. Let them spin the story. You're not here to stay palatable for people who loved your chaos more than your peace. It's uncomfortable as hell watching people who once disrespected you act confused about your distance. They know what they did. They remember every little dig, every time they tried to humble you when you were just trying to heal. But now that you don't pick up the phone, now that your presence is scarce, they play dumb. They'll call you sensitive, say you're holding grudges, that you're being unfair. But what they're really mad about is that they no longer have access to the version of you that let things slide. Boundaries are only a problem for people who got too used to crossing them. People project when they see someone grow in a way they couldn't. They'll swear you got lucky, that you changed, that you think you're better now. But it's not arrogance, it's clarity. You got clear about who you are, what you're not tolerating, and who doesn't deserve a seat at your table. That kind of clarity hits people in the ego, especially the ones who needed you broken so they could feel fixed. You're not responsible for their discomfort. They had a front row seat to your struggle and chose to watch instead of help. So now they don't get to act surprised that you're not clapping for their version of your story. This isn't about revenge. It's not about proving anyone wrong. It's about finally getting to a place where peace matters more than appearances, where you don't owe anyone a performance, where being misunderstood doesn't bother you the way it used to. Let people assume, gossip, twist it however they want. Your silence will say everything they pretend not to hear. You don't need to settle the score when the truth always lands. Eventually. And when it does, it hits harder because you didn't force it. You just kept walking. And that unsettles people more than any argument ever could. The second your actions start matching self-respect, the resistance drops off in the weirdest ways. People either fall back or fall off. No long arguments, no dramatic exits. They just get quiet, start acting awkward, or slowly disappear. And at first, it might feel like you're doing something wrong, like you've pushed people away. But that's not it. What's really happening is they realize they can't handle this version of you that's no longer available for their bullshit. They can't access the insecure version they knew, the one that overextended, apologized for everything, and bent backwards just to keep peace. That version is gone. And now that you're not chasing, not proving, not explaining, the game isn't fun for them anymore. They're not mad you changed. They're mad their tactics stopped working. Most people don't even realize how much chaos they invite just by disrespecting themselves on a regular basis, saying yes to stuff they hate, staying around people who drain them, laughing at jokes that cut too deep just to avoid awkward silence. It becomes a way of life. And then they wonder why everything feels hard. Relationships, jobs, even just waking up. But the moment you start making moves that say, "I'm not available for that anymore," the noise around you shifts. Not because the world suddenly got easier, but because your standards started clearing the room. What used to be tolerated is now a no. That clarity, it doesn't make life perfect. It just removes the constant resistance from living against your own instincts. People start exposing themselves the minute you stop being desperate for their approval. It's like a switch flips. The flattery dries up, the fake support becomes silence, and the same folks who were always checking in suddenly act like you've offended them by standing up straighter. They liked you when you were shaky. They could relate to that version. But when you stop participating in your own disrespect, the room gets uncomfortable. Because people who never did the work will always eye someone who starts doing it. They're not intimidated by your growth. They're ashamed of their own lack of it. But instead of owning that, they'll act like you've changed, like you're being distant or arrogant. Nah, you're just done playing small so they can feel big. Once you stop oversharing, watch how the energy changes. The minute you stop giving people access to your doubts, your insecurities, your plans, their behavior gives them away. They either start fishing for details, trying to guilt you into opening up, or they lose interest completely. And that silence, that pullback, it tells you everything. People don't know how to be around someone who's self-contained. They need chaos to stay connected. But when you're not offering updates for them to dissect, you take away their power to twist the narrative. That's when you realize half your relationships were built on you leaking pieces of yourself just to feel heard. You're not being guarded now. You're finally being deliberate. And the people who can't handle that were never really listening in the first place, self Respect doesn't mean you walk around acting superior. It just means you stop negotiating your worth in rooms where no one's offering anything but judgment. Suddenly, you're not the easy target. You're not the one jumping to help people who wouldn't even show up with a text. If roles were reversed, the energy evens out, and you realize a lot of the stress you used to carry came from constantly trying to fix what wasn't yours to begin with. Now that you've pulled back, the same people who used to depend on your guilt trips have to sit with themselves. They might call it selfish. Let them. Because every time you abandoned yourself to make someone else feel comfortable, they called that love. You're just choosing something different now. Holding your ground gets misread real fast. When you start enforcing boundaries, people act like you've declared war. That's how normalized disrespect is. You say, "I'm not okay with that," and suddenly you're the villain. That kind of reaction shows you exactly who benefited from you having no backbone. People like things predictable, especially if predictability means you'll keep taking hits without pushing back. But now, when you don't flinch, when you say less, when you leave messages on read, it scrambles their sense of control. They can't decide how to feel about you anymore, and that makes them nervous. You didn't become difficult. They just lost access to the version of you they could manipulate. Every time you stay calm while someone else tries to stir the pot, you take the power back. Not reacting doesn't mean you didn't catch it. It means you're not giving it the dignity of a response. And that restraint, that's maturity. Because most people operate on impulse. They need the drama to feel something. But you've been there. You've played the game of clapping back, calling out, trying to expose people who were never going to admit anything anyway. It got you nowhere but exhausted. Now you're letting the situation speak for itself. Let them spiral. Let them post cryptic nonsense. Let them play victim. Eventually, it gets obvious who's really the problem. What people don't tell you is that healing makes you boring to the wrong crowd. When you stop gossiping, when you stop volunteering your pain for pity points, when you stop showing up just to be included, folks start acting like you disappeared. No, you're still here. You're just not playing the role they liked. You were the one who kept conversations alive, who took the emotional hits, who carried dead friendships on your back. And now you're prioritizing peace. That scares people who only knew how to bond over dysfunction. It's not that you cut everyone off. You just stopped picking up what wasn't yours anymore. And what's left now are real ones who don't need you to fall apart to feel close. You start to see patterns. Same arguments, different faces. Same manipulation, different packaging. But you don't fall for it anymore. That's the quiet win. No applause, no big moment. Just a split second choice not to engage, not to explain, not to chase. And life starts flowing differently. You find energy you didn't know you had. You sleep better. Things align without being forced. because self-respect clears space. And in that space, you stop surviving and start living. Not because everything's perfect, but because you're finally not at war with yourself. That shift doesn't get celebrated enough, but it's everything. Eventually, you realize most of the chaos wasn't life punishing you. It was just the consequence of betraying yourself over and over, making yourself small, choosing comfort over truth, keeping peace that came at the cost of your sanity. But now, you're not doing that anymore. And it's not some grand, dramatic change. It's small stuff. Not responding to things that don't deserve your time. Saying no without over-explaining. Walking away without turning it into a show. That's when things click. Life doesn't fight back the same way when you're not constantly fighting yourself. It's not easier. It's just finally honest.